Hi guys, my name is Michel with Michel Real Estate. You can call me Michael. And in this video, we're gonna answer the question from one of our subscribers. How do I know for certain that the evaluation or appraisal of the property that I'm considering purchasing is absolutely correct and that I'm not overpaying for what I am willing to purchase? So stay tuned, let's get into it. It's gonna be very interesting for you guys. Okay, so first up, I need to tell you guys that actually there's many theories out there on how to appraise or estimate a property, but first let's get into the terminology. So here in Luxembourg, we basically call it an evaluation, estimation in French. In other countries, you might call it an appraisal, although usually an appraisal is done on the technical part of the construction itself. And in other countries, we might also call it an estimate, evaluation, and so forth. So the first thing that we need to consider is that actually these are just theories. It actually means that we do never know the price 100% certain. The price that we estimate, and listen to the words, it's an estimate, it's not a certainty, is actually the price that we think that buyers might pay for a property. So here are my evaluation theories, and they are ranked from worst to best in my opinion. So the first thing that we can do is actually go on the Observatoire de l'Habitation, which is a Luxembourgish governmental body which basically follows and lists all the prices of real estate here in Luxembourg. Now the thing about this is that one is we have the announced price, which is basically the price that you would see if you go on any of the websites and start checking out active listings. And on the other hand, we have the registered price. Now the interesting thing is that we as real estate agents have no oversight on what the registered prices are within the near past. Okay, so anything that happened 3 months ago, we have no clue what prices were actually paid. But we do know what the prices were about a year ago. Now this gives us a good indication of where prices are going, but it is unfair to judge a property on the prices of a year ago, especially in Luxembourg, where we have seen increases of 10–20%. So this is the first step that you can take, but it is not an accurate one to estimate your property. Next up is the 5% rule. Now the 5% rule, I have already dealt with it in another video, but it is also a tool that you could use in order to estimate a property. In order to do so, you basically need to consider that the law in Luxembourg stipulates that an investment in a property can never exceed 5% return on investment, meaning that let's say you have an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment for rent in, Kirchberg, because I just recently rented one. Let's say that the price on the rent is 1,850 euro a month. So that basically means that over a year, let me see the calculation here. Yeah, so by 12, so if we multiply it by 12, we basically have a revenue of 22,200 euros a month. A year. So that's an annual return on investment that you get. Okay, that's gross, by the way. So if we would then divide that number by the 5%, we basically would come to a price of 440,000 euro for that unit. Now, in Luxembourg, pretty much everyone and their grandmother can basically tell you that an apartment with 2 units in Kirchberg would never ever be sold today for that price. We would actually probably ask, pretty much twice that amount, even if it needs to be renovated here and there. But the 5% rule is basically an indicator which tells you what you are allowed to invest in order to get a certain rent back. Okay, it is not an accurate measurement anymore, and there's actually a lot of debate about the 5% rule, clearly because it is not very well defined, which means that if you follow the 5% law, you cannot stipulate what it actually entails. If I have a property which I invested in 20 years ago when we still had the Luxembourgish franc, well, what conversion rate do I need? Do I actually also justify inflation? If it's an inheritance, I didn't invest anything, my grandparents maybe did, or my parents, so how does that work then? Can I actually ask any rent? It's very, very difficult to apply this law. It is very vague. So again, in my opinion, this is not the rule to follow in order to estimate your property. So let's move on to the next one. So the next one is more of an analytical approach. It is basically what architects like to do in order to basically appraise the construction itself, right? So you can go to any architect in this country and ask for an expertise, which basically means that an expert will look at the property and tell you the value of that property simply by looking at the construction itself. This means that we will look into everything. What kind of flooring? How old is your heating? What kind of insulation do you have? How old are the windows? Are they double or triple windows? What kind of insulation does your roof have? And so on and so on and so on. Here's the problem with these types of appraisals, and I have actually seen this happening in my own market, is that usually these appraisals can come back and have no correlation to the market itself, right? So we have seen this happen on a property in Luxembourg, which was a very nice home. In my opinion, the appraisal that came back, which was 1.8 million, was something that the landlords who are looking into selling were of course very willing to accept if anyone would bring that offer. Unfortunately, we had to shatter that bubble, and this is often a very detrimental point in the sale for the landlords. It basically means that we had to drop down this price by 600,000 euro. Someone came in, gave them an idea, and that idea would not correlate with what the market, so basically buyers, were willing to accept to give for that property. So although an expertise is a very good idea to start with, although they do cost you money, right? You have to pay the person to give you this expertise, and it's basically an entire formula where they put all the data into a program and out comes an estimate, and you have to pay, like I just said, but it can give you a very distorted number. My type of appraisal is basically something completely else, and we'll get into it right now. Right, so we just saw three different types of appraisals, estimates, however you want to call them. In my opinion, and this is probably also because I am an agent and I feel like I have to find buyers for sellers, in my opinion, the best way to evaluate a property is not by the previous three ones, but by a CMA, which is a comparative market analysis. Very expensive wording for actually something very, very simple. First up, we will actually use all the three other methods as well, which means that we first have to appraise the construction itself. Now that brings us to a number. Now if we have that number, we can also look into the 5% rule. Are we violating the 5% rule, yay or nay? In most cases it is not applicable anymore. So we also move on to the very first type of estimation that we could do, is basically look at the price per square meter. Now, in my opinion, and this is the way I work, we should look at the price per square meter as it is as of today, right? So since it's very difficult for us to go and look into what the registered prices were in the last couple of weeks or last couple of months, we can, however, look at the market and see what has been sold. Now, this gives me two different numbers. One, I have the price of what is being announced, and on the other hand, I have the price of what is actually sold. I do not know exactly how much was negotiated, but that gives me a rough estimate of what the price per square meter can be. Moving on from there, I will not just look at the price per square meter, because when someone is looking for a house to purchase, he will not just walk into a house, drop down a piece of paper saying, hey, you have this price per square meter, the other ones have other prices, you are actually cheaper, here's my money, we're done. No. And also the other way it doesn't go. He or she does not come into the property and say, well, you're actually a bit expensive, so you need to drop your price and then we have a deal. Absolutely not. We are very visual animals, which means that we need to see a property. Otherwise, why do we do so many showings and visits? So in order for us to estimate the property correctly, we need to look at how it looks. How is the interior designed? Now, I don't mean to say that we need to get an interior designer, although you probably should, but at least we need to make sure that what we are trying to sell is very pleasing to the eye. Once we know that the property that we are about to list is very pleasing to the eye and there's very little that future buyers need to invest in the property, it will sell well and we can ask for a better price. Not to overestimate it, of course, right? We'll get into that a bit later. But the price of the square meter is also a correlation of how the interior looks. If we have old flooring, lots of wood on the walls or on the ceilings, if we don't have concrete joists, floor joists, and they are all wooden, well, we need to drop that price a little bit because most people would like to live on concrete floors for some reason or another. So we look at the properties and actually look at where does this property fit in. Once we know where it can fit in, you are starting to become a product. The house is a product and needs to be purchased by someone. And in order to do that, the product needs to look good and it needs to have the right competitive price. And in my opinion, this is the best way to sell a house. So if you are looking to purchase a property, go out and look at the different properties in that area. See where it fits in. If you can tell that the property needs a lot of renovation, but the square meter price is also extremely high compared to the other ones, well then probably it is listed for way too much money and you don't need to even visit it. Perhaps a couple of months later they will drop the price because they will have realized their mistake themselves, and that's when you should give them a phone call. Okay, so let's move on to the last step. Now, this last step is actually more of a warning than it is actually a step or an evaluation theory that I'm going to present to you. Here is what happens, is that once agents start to get listings, we will have also people who think that their property is worth more than anyone else's. I cannot tell you how often I have heard, well, my neighbor sold it for X amount of euro and actually I think my property is better, and therefore I shall list it for more. Well, unfortunately, you as a seller are not objective at all, and you will feel a kind of different emotion from, first of all the buyers and of course from the agents. The biggest worry that we as agents have is basically managing the unrealistic view of the world and the real estate market of our sellers, our clients. And more often than not, agents are just willing to take the listing at any price, put it on their website. They already know that they will not get any buyers whatsoever, only to call them a couple of months later and basically telling them every single day that they need to drop their price if they want to sell. But by that time, the damage is already done, and actually people realize, well, the ones that are buyers who are looking every single day, is that you are starting to compete on price. So now you're going to drop that price, and that is not something that I want for my sellers. It is way better to come out on the market very strong, the right price, the right kind of marketing, and basically find that avatar, that buyer who actually loves this type of property. That is my job and that is what we do. So if you're looking for a purchase, basically always talk to the agent and see what he can tell about the seller as well. So I hope this video was helpful. Let's not forget that there's many other theories out there as well. This is, by the way, only for residential property evaluation and does not consider any type of rental appreciations or any kind of commercial property appreciations. This is solely meant for residential properties. There are many more theories out there, but I have just given you the most important ones for the Luxembourgish real estate market. So we have come to the end of our video. Of course, you can always follow me on all the other social media as well. And hopefully I will see you in the next video. Again, my name is Michel with Michel Real Estate and you can call me Michael. I love you guys so much. See you in the next one. Bye.